Hello, quilting peeps. We are here today to do a live taping, and I have just opened the chat, so I'm just going to be rambling as viewers come into the live broadcast. Just a reminder that I will be in Havana, Illinois on Friday at 1:30 doing a lecture with Miles Got a Notion Quilt Shop in Havana, Illinois. And you can go to that channel to set up for that. And also needed to just answer a quick question. I'm sure the person that asked me this isn't live yet. I'm just doing some announcements here. If they asked me what grit of sandpaper to use, I actually have a little file folder. If you can't find the sandboard that I normally use, I also have where I just put sandpaper and glue it onto a file folder on the inside, and then I can use this as a sandboard as well. And they were wanting to know what grit that was. On here I have 3M 210N, so that's the grit that I use for that. So welcome everybody. I see you're coming into the chat room. So we got Barbara Nelson she's saying hello. We've got Hannah Beauty Love. How are you? Welcome tonight. Got Liz is here. Liz Ryan. She says good evening. Jana Osborne says hello. We got Jim Hanson says hi T. Thanks for all you do for us. So we're still getting people into the chat room. I think we're up to 20 viewers now. I normally like to start around 25. We got Linda Knowles. Hi, Linda. Peggy O'Connor. Hi. How you doing? Welcome. We got Kaylin at Stitched Art Studio. She says hi to you and everyone from Ottawa, Canada. Got Brenda Newsom says hi. Lauren King from Dallas, Texas. Ursula Moore from Atlanta. Hello, Ursula. So thank you all for doing your check-ins. I appreciate it. Tonight, this topic was a requested topic, and I wanted to wait until after we had a guest speaker come to our guild. I have some knowledge of what happens or what you need to do to actually submit a quilt for a juried show. So we're going to talk about mostly what she stated, and then I'm just going to add my little tidbits in here and there. We have Darlene Former. Greetings from Northern Virginia. Welcome, Darlene. Got Barbara Booch from Cleveland, Ohio. I probably butchered your name. I'm sorry about that. That's one of my things. I'm not very good with names, even though I have a weird name as well. So sorry if I did. So I got 22 viewers in the room. It looks like every time I get ready to go live, and then when I come in at my scheduled time, it looks like my live presentation has been trying to prompt people to come earlier, and I go into my edit settings and everything is fine. So I don't know what's going on with that, but just know that anytime I'm doing a live, that it will be on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. USA Central Standard Time. So we're going to talk about making and entering show quilts is what I'm going to call it in the end. Barbara's so sweet. She says, no worry, everyone mispronounces it. Hi, So Love. Hi, Evelyn. She's in the house. Okay. So our speaker, her name is Ann McNew, and I'm going to refer you to her blog. It's addictreds.blogspot.com. And I'm just referring you to her. She's an expert on this because she has this knowledge from being a person that has entered quilts into a quilt show, as well as being a judge. And she also teaches on the national level at the Machine Quilting conferences. So I just want to first give her that information. Some of this information I already knew, but she gave some more additional information about from the judge's perspective, how they receive quotes and so forth. So we're going to just go over some of these topics. If you're having questions about any of this, go ahead and pop them into the chat box as we go along. I'll try to read those. We got Francesca. Hi, T. I'm also in STL, very interested in this topic. Well, welcome. Okay, so we're going to get started. So there are 3 types of quilt shows that you can enter, and then they have various different levels on how you can enter those particular shows. So the first shows that you most likely can enter would be your state fair type of quilt show. So when you enter those, they have a deadline, but what's more important with that type of show is to get your quilt submitted early because it's not a juried show, it's a non-juried show. So therefore, they most likely will be going on a first come, first served basis because they only have so much space for how many quilts they can limit. And remember, at the state fair type of quilt shows, you're getting quilters from all over the state that are submitting entries into that quilt show. So for that type of a show, you want to submit on time. Any of these particular type of quilt shows, you just want to make sure that you adhere to the basic deadline rules, any type of rules that apply for the size of the quilt, what needs to be on the quilt, etc. So that goes for any of these types of quilt shows. And the second type of non-juried quilt show would be your Quilt Guild quilting show, your quilt shows. And the reason I talk about this a little bit is because this is, if you're a member of a guild, that's also one of the benefits or perks of being a guild member. When we submit quilts into Quilting Guild quilt shows, we do have a deadline. And then you can submit anything that you like. And then what happens, the committee will decide how much space they have. And then they take all of the entries and make sure that everybody in the guild has space to at least put 1 quilt into each category. And then from there, if somebody has, say, 10 quilts in one category, they may write to them and say, can you please remove 3 or 4 of these so we can have space for everyone? So the nice thing about the Quilt Guild is that they will accept everyone's quilts that are a member of that guild. And then there may be a few quilt guilds that may take quilts from other non-guild members because they might have space to fill. In addition to that, there are sometimes special exhibits that are shown at quilt shows, and you can get into those shows without even having to go through the regulation. The person that's coordinating the exhibit will do all of the paperwork. You just need to make sure that you get your quilt to her and that it's ready to be shown in the show. So now, most of the non-jury, the organization can hire a judge, even though they may be non-juried, they may be a judged show. Judging a show and being juried is 2 different things. Being juried in is saying that this quilt must meet certain standards before it can be accepted into this quilt show. Being judged is a whole other different side. It's just saying that the viewer may only vote for the best first place in viewer's choice or something like that. So there is a difference, and you don't want to get those 2 mixed up. So either of your local, what I'm calling your local shows, your quilt guilds and your state fairs, it could have a judge still applying the ribbon to that instead of viewer choice. So now we want to talk about the last type of quilt show, and this is the one we're going to talk about the rest of the night, is your national judged and juried quilt shows. Some things that you want to remember on this is that you must complete your application by the deadline. So when I say completed by the deadline, they need to actually receive that application by the deadline. And then there's certain things that need to be done with that. Hold on, looks like I got a couple more people. We got Donna Myers. She's in Pearland, Texas, and we've got Angelica. She's from Brazil. She's talking to me in another language here. So yes, so now that we know what type of shows, we're gonna now start completing and submitting our application for the jury shows. So number one is that you do want to make sure that you complete and mail the application to the organization so that they receive it by the deadline date. Number two is that you have to name your quilt. And what the speaker recommended is that you name it something that will catch attention. You just don't want to say 9-patch blocks. You want to say something about 9 patches where the sun was shining over the horizon, or horizon 9 patches, or something like that. She said just giving it general names doesn't catch the attention of the judges. So be creative in what you are naming your quilt. And in addition to that, you want to do the same thing with your description. And you want to give it some sort of inspiration for why you made this particular quilt. And when she said that, I thought about how we sometimes will complete our resumes. You tell them kind of what you do, but you kind of pump it up a little bit to make it seem like it's just a little bit more, but you actually do it, but you make it seem like it's a little bit more important. So that's how I think about the description that she said, and what inspiration was behind it. Number 4, you need to let them know if this is an original design or if it was someone else's design work. And this is a little tricky because sometimes they may not know that something was made by someone. It may not be a popular pattern. But if you go out and win a ribbon, first place ribbon on something that someone else designed, and they're at that particular show as well, and then they contact the judges, you could be stripped of your award and your money that you won for entering that quilt show. The size needs to be correct as well, so make sure you measure your quilt. If they receive a quilt and it's accepted into a category, and then when they go to do the measuring to hang it, and then it needs to be in a different category, you could then be disqualified again because they may or may not have additional space to put your quilt in the other category because they already had accepted so many quilts prior to that. Your type of padding should be listed, and this is on particular types of quilt shows. Not all quilt shows will have this on their application, so do keep that in mind. Your type of thread used should be listed. If someone other than yourself quilted this quilt, then you need to list the quilter's information as well. And then that also may make your quilt go into a group category instead of just a single individual category, because some shows do set that up as well. And we're at number 9 now. I haven't been saying all the numbers, but she just told us the information of that most quilt shows, of your national quilt shows, when you enter them, they have a $500 insurance policy in case anything happens to your quilt. She did say if you feel your quilt is worth more than $500, that you may want to get a personal appraiser. We do have appraisers in our area that are certified by AQS, the American Quilter Society. And so we do get appraisals that go along with our quilts whenever we send them out, because most quilts are worth more than $500. If you do get that appraisal, you need to make sure that you attach a copy of it with your application as well. And then one of the biggies with most of your national shows is that you've got to add photos when you submit your quilt. And I had 2 quilts of mine go. I actually did the work for one, and then my Gil, we did a group project, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But when you take your pictures, you need to have a close-up so that they can see the detail of the work, and then you need to have a full photo of the quilt included as well. Now, when you start taking these photos, this is where I'm come back to it. The one quilt that I submitted, I made sure that I used a tripod. And the reason why I did that is because when you take a picture of a quilt, you want to make sure that you aim the camera in the center of your quilt and then zoom out so that everything else can be in the frame. And then what I would do is I would crop out the picture and get the excess sides off of my quilt. And I'm getting beeps again from this speaker system. I hope nothing is going to go wrong tonight like it did last week. But then that way you got your completed picture. Now you can't do any additional cropping. You can crop your picture, but you can't do any photo enhancing. You can't change the coloring, your light system, things like that. I find I like to take my pictures outside. I just take my tripod outside and I make sure that it's in the morning. I get the morning light instead of the evening light because the evening light's a little bit harsher for taking photos. And then the last thing with national shows for submitting your application is to include the fee. Part of that fee that you're paying is for them to mail you your quilt back. So make sure that you include whatever fee that they are requiring for you to enter into that show. So we're gonna take a quick break and we're going to go and see who else is here. I saw some things coming up. We got Patty, she's here, Patty Spencer. Hi T, beautiful here in California. That's great. We finally had, yesterday was a day of no rain and it came right back today. We got Bonita Nance. Hi Bonita. Welcome. I'm glad you made it this week. And John is saying she doesn't know why she can't do the video. I can see all the comments. Go and refresh your page. I think sometimes when you come in early and wait, you can't get the video because I'm not live yet. So just refresh your page. Hopefully that works. Got Nita Hooper. Just a hi T, it's Nita from Garland, Texas. Hi, Nita. And someone else did tell her to go. Hi, Sharon Martin. She's here. Says she's sorry she's late. She's from Michigan. Welcome. So we just are now going to our next level. So if you've done everything and you've heard from them, it would be great when you receive the email notification or letter that your quilt has been accepted into the show. And now what they want to do is you to mail your quilt in. So they have a receiving room set up. And this is where I got most of my information from Ann McNew at this point because I'm not on this side of the quilt show. She says, well, I'm just saying. So now you're lucky and you've got in. Now it's time for you to mail your purchase cargo. I learned during her presentation that the receiving staff can disqualify your quilt from going any further. And that was a shocker to me. So this is very good inside information here. Some of the things that can disqualify your quilt is if you use packing peanuts. Didn't know that. So if you're getting these applications, please make sure that you read the fine print. Don't just fill out the submission form and don't read all of their requirements. She says because when they open, they'll just open the box. And if they see the packing peanuts, they just close it back and move it on to the next spot. It doesn't go any further because they don't want the packing peanuts everywhere. You need to remove any pet hair, lint, or loose threads prior to packing your quilts. If it's in there, they're not going to open it any further. They're going to fold it right back up and they're going to put it back into the original package. And I'll talk about why in a minute. And then the last thing that could disqualify your quilt is the smell of cigarette smoke. And they do note that by the time that the quilt is received by them, that if you're trying to use Febreze on these quilts, that's not going to work with that. Now, the reason why they disqualify for those type of things is that they don't want to mix your quilt with all of the other quilts. Because once they open up your quilt and see that you've met all the requirements that are given, then they're sorting those quilts into stacks, into categories, getting them ready for the judges. So they don't want to put a quilt that have those things wrong with it or that's involved with those quilts. So they don't want to put them with everybody else's quilt and have everybody else's quilt be contaminated by your particular quilt if it had those problems. So that's why. Also, the receiving room also verifies that there are no copyright infringements. Companies like Coca-Cola, Disney or anything like that. So if you've made a quilt where there's a copyright infringement on the graphics, your quilt will not be moved any further into the show process. They look for tension issues. They look for false backs. And I didn't know that you couldn't do a false back, but that's because they're also trying to check for the tension issue. So if you've got a quilt where you've got some bad tensions, and then sometimes we'll go and put another backing over it to cover it, but it's not quilted all the way through, they consider that a false back. So that can disqualify your quilt as well. And if you don't have a hanging sleeve, it could disqualify you. Now, if they know for a fact that your quilt may be accepted, then sometimes they will contact you and ask you if it's okay for them to pin a sleeve onto the back of your quilt. Of course, you will have to then pay for that as well, and that can be charged by how much of a pinning sleeve they have to put on your quilt. And number 8, a last item in the receiving room is to make sure you have a label on the quilt that is in with the guidelines of the show entry. Sometimes the show entry people on the form, it will tell you what you need to have on your label. And I said we talk about this tonight. And then other times they may tell you, yes, you need to have all these things on your label, but we also need to have your name covering the label while we're doing judging. So that way they're not biased when they're actually doing their judging. So if they're telling you that, they'll tell you exactly how to do it. I remember when I did mine, they wanted me to loosely base my name, and they wanted me to base the piece of fabric over my label and then just do it loosely so that when it was ready for it to go into the show, they could just pull those stitches out. So that's how it worked for me. We got some more people here. We're going to the next topic, so I'll go ahead and do the next people. We got Eva Fuller, she says, from Central Illinois. Looking forward to meeting you this weekend. Yay! Eva, thank you for joining. I'm looking forward to it. I've been working on it all month. Gwen Spencer here from Las Vegas. Hi, Gwen. Oh, yeah, we're almost getting there. So now your quilt has made it, hopefully, into the judge's room. Nothing stopped it from going any further once it was received. And she said there are certain people in the room who have particular jobs. First thing is that there are 2 scribes in the room and that they are writing down all the information that the judges are saying about your quilt. And then there's a secretary who makes sure that everything is numbered and matches, and she also then reads the description to the judges. So remember, these judges are not actually reading your description. Someone is reading them to them, and they've been going through hundreds of quilts, especially for national shows, to decide who's going to be a winner. So that's why that description is very important. And do note that most applications have a limited number of characters that you can actually put on the form. But it was surprising to me that she stated that if you say, please, if you write in the description field, please read the full description to the judges. She said then you attach that on a piece of paper that the secretary will read the entire description. So that was a shocker to me because I thought you had to stay specifically within the character preference of what was stated. And then she says there are other worker bees that once the judges have done the assessment of the quilts, that they move them into other areas. So we got Joni here now. Hi, Joni. And we got the browser problem fixed. So it was a different browser. She couldn't see. Okay, so now some of the things that I knew is what the judges are looking at when your quote comes to them. So one of the things to keep in mind is that these are judges' opinion of your work. So it's not going to be life threatening, life critical per se. Don't get discouraged by what the judges are saying about your particular quilt. Also, you can have 3 judges looking at your quilt and you'll come up with different comments about from each judge. One judge might like the way you did something, and another judge says it's the most horrific thing they've ever seen. So it just depends on that judge. It is their opinion, and that's where I always say when I come on and do a lot of my live shows, just remember this is just what I would do. It's not what everybody would do. It doesn't mean that it is the best way to do something. It's just, how a particular person operates. So don't take it too personal. It's just a learning experience, and it gives you something. You might get some constructive criticisms that you can use to make your quilting better. They first start look at the cohesiveness of the fabric. They want to make sure that everything goes together, that nothing seems like it's out of place. Is your quilt square? I just had this question posted in, not necessarily this question, but I had a person asking about on my Facebook group, asking if she should wash her quilt before she put the binding on. And all of the comments, it was 2 comments before I came in, told her to put the binding on the quilt first. And then I said, yes, what they said. Now, there is a time, if you know that you are going to enter this quilt into a quilt show, you need to block your quilt before you put the binding on. That's because that way you know for sure that that quilt is square. And blocking a quilt is a whole nother technique, and I have never had to do that, thank goodness, because most of my quilts have been, I'm pretty square, so I don't have that issue very often. But if you're going to submit a quilt into a quilt show, you need to make sure that quilt is square. Trust me, they are going to check. The quality of your workmanship, and that's going to be looked at as your quilt overall, as well as in the particular technique that you are featuring. Say you're featuring hand applique, they're going to make sure that your stitches don't show, that your thread matches. Say if you're doing machine applique, they want to make sure if you're doing the buttonhole stitch, that stitch stays perfectly along the edge, that it looks like it was done by hand. So they're looking at the perfection or the precision of your actual technique. And the reason why is because as we get more and more into these quilt shows, I remember when I first entered, not necessarily when I first entered, but when I started going to Paducah, I'd say it had to be maybe the 2003, 2004. There was a lot of quilts, but there is an abundance of more quilts being entered from all over the world. So in order for them to decide who the winner is, they now have to be a whole lot more pickier than they had to be in the past. So just keep that in mind as well when you're getting back to judges' comments. They've got to decipher your quilt from somebody else's that's going to actually be the winner. And it could be just the precision of some technique that was in the quilt. Again, they're going to really look at your quilt tension. They want to make sure that your 2 threads are meeting in the batting and not meeting on the front or the back. And that's why a lot of long armors, they just like to use the same color thread on the top as well as the same color thread on the back. And if you know ahead of time that you're going to enter a quilt into a judge or jury show, it would be nice to share that information with your long armor ahead of time so that she can take a little bit more precaution with varying threads. It may cost you a little more for her to do that, but just check that to make sure, to let her know so that your quilt doesn't get dinged for the quilting if she didn't know you were going to enter it in the first place. And then you have your binding. And I have a lot of friends locally that doesn't do this, but I'm one of those people that if I see something, I can't stand to look at it and I have to fix it. But almost from day one, when I started sewing my bindings, I sew my binding onto the front and then I take it and hand sew it to the back, which is what you should do if you're entering a show, unless you've got some special technique on the edging that you are presenting. And then a lot of people, they would get into the corner and then they would sew the corner down on the back and then they would leave the corner open on the front. And you need to go and sew that opening close on the front as well. Once I sew the opening on my back, I just poke the needle through and come up on the other side, sew the front side, and then I come back through. So it doesn't show, but it does lay that corner down nice and perfect. And who is that's going to be at my show this weekend? You will be able to verify that I do sew the fronts and backs down of every quilt. Even if I sew the binding down by machine for my charity quilts, I still go into those corners and sew them down even by machine. So we got Dewana here. Hi, Dewana. So we're getting close to the end. She's This was her tip, and I guess this could apply to any color of a curtain. She says that most quilt shows that you enter use black curtains. I know that our quilt guild uses navy blue curtain. She says you might want to be careful with using binding that's black if the show curtains are black, because she said your edge will then just blend into the quilt and it won't look like you intended it to be, or is it floating. So as if you know you're entering a national show, try not to use black binding. And then I think that's it. Just my last comment I had already stated to you was, that any of these comments that you receive from the judges are just that, is their opinion. It's just a comment, is a statement. It's not meaning that your quilt isn't any better than the next person. It's just that because these shows are so hard to judge now with all of the workmanship that are out, that they have to find something to make something a winner. And the last thing I think I heard her say that I didn't even put in my notes, but she says that they take all of the winners from each category, and then they take the first place from those categories to determine who is going to be best of show. And so then once they determine which one is best of show, whatever category it came out of, one of those quilts will move up. So second place will now become first place, third place will become second, and then honorable mention will move into third. So I thought that was interesting how things work from the inside. So I really enjoyed Anne's lecture. Again, if she has a blog, she does some mystery quilts that she does patterns for. It's you get back on the front page here. It's editthreads.blogspot.com if you're interested in going over to see her. And again, she is a national instructor for long-arm quilting. She's excellent with that. She's also the coordinator of our long-arm guild in the Gateway area, the St. Louis Gateway area. And she is she's been in national shows as a contestant as well. She even got honorable mention in 2016 for a quilt. So she's very good at what she does. So I think she has very good insights. So if you got any questions on any of the information that I provided, or if I missed something, let me know. So I'm just going up the chat list now. It looks like no one else has come in from Dewana. So what else is going on in my life? I'm trying to retrain my body to be up in the daytime instead of at night, and that's very difficult. I'm trying to walk every day for 45 minutes from 8 to 8:45, or just get it in between 8 and 9. So that's been a chore. I'm trying to get 5,000 steps in within 45 minutes. That's difficult because I'm walking like a zombie some mornings. I don't want to get up and do it, but I'm making myself do it anyway. Sharon's funny. She says that this sounds a lot like a cat or dog show. Yes, I'm sure anything that you're entering has a lot of rules and regulations. What else is going on? Oh, I've been getting patterns printed for my trip on Friday. I've been getting my quilts organized, and then I had them organized like a week ago or so, and then I've decided to add more quilts in. I'm actually doing my scrap quilts lecture that is normally about 50 to 55 minutes that I do for quilt guilds, and I'm expanding this lecture into a 3-hour lecture. I'm going to add in more quilts. I get to talk a little bit longer about some of my processes because I have to really speed it up when I'm at guild meetings. So I am glad to have Moss Got a No Shapes Quilt Shop sponsoring my trip. this weekend. I'm actually doing a lecture on Friday, and I'll be teaching my Exploding Star class on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to that. I also may even have us do a line dance. So I do teach line dances class. So maybe we'll do a line dance. Might have a little time to get some little exercise in there as well. So trying to think what else. It's so much going on. My daughter's doggy, she's doing really good. She's healing and her hair is starting to grow back. So we're real grateful about that. It's been 2 weeks and a day as of today. And we're now able to start picking her back up again. Before we had to just transport her in a bed because we could not pick her up on her side. So she's doing very well. She's starting back to bark. She was bit over her left lung, so she wasn't able to bark. She didn't want to use that because it was sore. But the x-ray said the lung was okay. We got those results back. So I appreciate all of your love and support for my little granddoggy, Paigey. She's doing very well. Karen says, I'm trying to have normal people hours too. Who decided everyone should be awake when the sun comes out? That's true. I'm trying to get a little bit more exercise in. I just noticed since I retired 2.5 years ago, and I'm just putting on weight, and that's because most of it's just me working for TeaQuilts, and I'm sitting down a lot, or the most running around I can do in my house is to get 2,000 to 3,000 steps in a day if I don't do something else. So I am just trying to reacclimate myself. Those are the hours that I can walk at my rec center during free time because they got the gym scheduled for so many other things. So I just thought maybe I need to get up and get moving. And I've really been doing good. I've been getting after I walk in the gym, I get like 8,000 to 9,000 steps a day. Today, I actually walked a little bit around some stores, and I'm already at over 10,000 for today. So I'm doing better. And I think it was having some overall other health issues when you're not moving and getting your blood pumping. So I feel better. But yeah, so I don't like the hours, but that's what's convenient for me. And Bonita says, I feel you. I have to walk 30 minutes at night. It's a chore. And it is very hard. When I'm up in the morning, it is so boring. Now, the great thing is I do have my daughter. I convinced her the last 2 weeks to come walk with me. And I've been walking for 3 weeks. So she's been doing it the last 2 weeks. And now we're talking about joining the gym. So we might do that as well next week. Start the month off. So we got Phyllis from Texas. Hi, Phyllis. Welcome. Sharon says, we night owls are valuable members of society. Peggy says, sounds like a fun weekend. Love exploding star pattern. Take lots of pictures. And I will take lots of pictures. I've had requests asking me to upload video of the lecture. I do not videotape my actual lectures because that's actually where I make my livelihood. So I don't upload those, but I do give you all tips and stuff that I use in various lectures in my videos that I do upload. Even in these live videos, I might give you up to 50% of what I say in a lecture, but I can't, even in my lecture, sometimes I may not give 100% because I might be selling a booklet or a pattern that has everything in it. So it's just that when this is what I do professionally, then I have to watch exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. So eventually you get all of my information, but you don't know it, and it's kind of dispersed throughout different videos. And thank you, Peggy, for loving my pattern. She took my class a long, long time ago. And she was the last comment there. So if you all got anything else you want to ask, I can't remember what the other questions were that were given to me. This week has been really bad. I just actually prepped this program about an hour and a half ago. So I didn't get a chance to go through and look at all the questions that I'd given answers to all week. I did get I got some question that someone was asking me about that I emailed 2 or 3 times back, but I can't remember right now what it is. So, but yeah, but I will upload. I will do some. I'm hoping when I go on this trip on the weekend that I can do some vlogging, and hopefully show you her quilt shop if she's willing for me to do that. And then I will do some photos of my setup at her quilt shop. That's the other thing. I normally have 2 quilt stands. And since we're going to be in a gymnasium, I'm taking advantage of the extra space. So I am now going to bring 4 tripods. So we're going to have 4 quilts on a stand, and I've got probably another 70, 80 quilts that we'll be seeing within that 3 hour period. So I'm really looking forward to it. I love teaching. Um, I get inspired as I'm inspiring other people. So I'm really looking forward to Friday. If you haven't had a chance to come to one of my lectures, and if I'm in your area, please do. Also, I get questions about will I travel to this particular area or that particular area. I am willing to travel anywhere. I need to be sponsored by a guild or a quilt shop that's willing to pay for my fees, and I discuss all of that with them. It also includes my lecture fees if I'm doing any workshop fees, my traveling fees at miles per hour because I tend to drive. I do not want to ship 60 quilts anywhere and they get lost in the mail, so I prefer to drive, not fly. And then I also need hotel. If it's more than 8 hours, or maybe say more than 6 hours away, I'm going to have to stay in a hotel at some point. So I need overnight on the road. And then I also need reimbursement for overnight when I'm in the area as well. And then all of that coming back. So it can be a little costly, but I am gun ho for going anywhere that wants me to come. So just keep that in mind. I do travel to in the Kansas area, Illinois, and Missouri. Those are my 3 main states that I travel through. And a lot of those guilds that I go to, I tend to go to them 2 and 3 times because they'll have me come back about every 3 to 4 years. I'm going back to those particular guilds. I have Sharon, she's saying, I'm grateful for the opportunity to learn anything from you. Well, thank you, Sharon. Yeah, Bonita says, how did you get started with line dancing? I do more of the R&B style of line dancing, although we do have some other songs. It's not the country line dancing. But I got started with that just by going to a local, they actually had it at a club per se, but that's not where I'd go. I'm just going because line dancers are a different group than your regular people that go to club. They give us the earlier days in the week because we don't really drink a whole lot. We're water drinkers for the most part because we're sweating a lot from dancing. But I got started in it probably about 10 years ago just to go, and I started having fun with it and just decided I would keep it up. And then eventually I started teaching classes on my own as well. I even had my daughter assisting me with teaching class. So yeah, it's fun. It's great exercise. It's another way to get your step count in for the day without the boring chore of walking. Got Liz saying, how long have you been having your long arm? I got my long arm in January of 2016, so I've had it a little over 2 years. And I do have a video series on how to purchase a long arm, how to choose which long arm is right for you. And then I also did a haul and a video on the actual long arm that I purchased. So I have a whole series of videos on the long arm as well. Phyllis says, T, what are your favorite rulers? I have so many and use about 3 of them. I hold on for just a second. I got sinus issues, so I just had a little bout with my eye. As far as favorite rulers, I tend to use any rulers, any brand, and I'm going to do a review on some rulers that are being sent to me, and I'm hoping that these rulers will be really good. I ordered some scrub rulers, but my main thing about rulers is you just need to know how to use the tool, number one. But number two, I like to use rulers that are appropriate to the size of what I'm using. So if I'm cutting 3-inch squares, I don't want to be using a big long ruler to cut 3-inch squares. I want to use something that's maybe a 4x8 or so. So if I'm step cutting, I want to use smaller rulers. And if I'm cutting yardage, then I, of course, use my bigger rulers for that. But as far as a favorite, I like the Creative Bridge rulers because they're clear. But like I said, and you've got the little logo here. I've got on white and you can't really see it here. But I like the Creative Bridge rulers because they have the non-slip markings on the back if I had to pick a particular brand is my favorite. But do I use them every day? No, I use the ruler that is appropriate for the size. And I do have a lot of rulers too, so I'm very selective about adding more rulers into it. So these rulers that I should be getting sometime this week that I'll think, I'm going to do a review and give my honest opinion about them. And I will let you know if it's something that I recommend. So that's coming up soon. Donna says, come to Texas. Donna, get a quilt guild to support me and I'll be right in Texas. I do want to come to Texas for the Houston Quilt Show, and that's still up in the air. It's based on lodging. So if I can get the lodging worked out, then I will definitely be coming to the Houston Quilt Show. And Phyllis and Lauren are also seconding it. So if you all are in any quilt guilds, let's refer them to my website. They can contact me from there via, I got all of my contact information on my website. So just if you're in any quilt guild, you want to see me come, just pass it along to your program chairperson. If they're willing to work with me, I can be willing to work with them a little, but I need, a lot of most of my expenses to be paid. I can kind of work with them a little, but I don't want to come out at a complete loss to do the traveling. Billy say you can stay at my house. I will feed you and you can finish my quilts. Yeah, right. uh, and she says that she loves the Creative Bridge rulers and she just bought the log cabin trim tool. And I don't have any napkins in this room. I got my right eye is deciding that it wants to be a problem right now. I, of course, have some sample tissues, a little small packages of tissue that I want to put in a gift, so I don't want to open those. But I can't find, I thought I had an open pack here, but I can't find it. Yay, I found it. I actually put it up. Imagine that. That's my other problem. I've been taking sinus meds this time of year. It's bad for me. All the rain. So I'm taking meds and I'm still crying. Okay. So I don't have any more questions listed down below. If you all got any more questions, go ahead and list them. We still got about 10 more minutes on the chat. If we don't have any other questions, I'll go ahead and end, but I'll give a few more minutes so that they can come through because I'm always on delay as I'm receiving information back. Yes. See, what else is going on in my life? Basically, this revamping my lecture has been taking over quite a bit, and then making sure that I have patterns. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to even sell patterns because we're meeting in the rec room of the city hall, but you can't sell what you don't have. So I was just making sure that everything's in stock. So I've just been doing a lot of desk work, a lot of organizing. I've still been reorganizing my quilt area, my quilt storage area as I've been pulling things out. And now I've got to go back in and pull a couple quilts that I've just added to my lecture. So I'm also going to bring a few of my challenge quilts. I'm also going to bring the 2 quilts that I entered into the AQS shows. One of them, that's what I forgot to tell you. One of the quilts that I entered into the AQS quilt, I told you about the standalone quilt that I entered. It got accepted, but it didn't win. It was a full-size quilt. And my other quilt, we actually entered as a gill. You can actually enter. There was a time when they would do gill entries into the quilt show for AQS. And we had whatever our gill challenge was, then we would select the top 10 quilts to go into the AQS quilt show. So we did that one year. That was a lot of fun. So I'll bring that one as well. And Sharon is say try Zyrtex for allergies. That's what I'm taking, Sharon. I take Zyrtex and I take Flonase. We got night 2. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. She's saying hello to you and welcome. We're almost finished for tonight. You might want to watch the rewind or the upload of this when it becomes live, because we have discussed all of the topics on entering your quilts into shows. Lauren King say, what quilt are you working on? That was the other thing. I was finishing up my Bonnie Hunters on Ringo Lake, which I called Sunrise. So I was finishing that quilt because I want to take it with me just to show on Friday. So I just finished. That was the quilt I showed you last week that I was hand sewing the binding on. I just showed you the label. I didn't show you the actual quilt. But I do have, I can't remember if I made a video of me machine quilting it or if I'm just going to do a little quick video saying that it's done because people knew that I was working on it. Darlene says, I'm still knitting socks to go with one quilt. That's awesome. And Liz Ryan says she would love to see some of the quilts that I've entered. I've entered 3 juried shows. I've entered 2 into AQS, and then we have 1 quilt guild that has a juried show locally. And again, the juried show means that not all quilts submitted will be accepted. And so I've entered that show. So I have 3 quilts that actually were juried into a show. Neither one of them, the one that was in the local show, won honorable mention, but other than that, I haven't won any ribbons on the ones for AQS. Sharon, you're crazy. She's talking about. I love to see a bed turning video of all your quilts. That would be awesome. Sharon, I have probably 400 to 500 quilts in my house, something like that. I've made probably over 600 quilts. I've given away a lot of quilts. Yeah. That's funny. And I live in a very small house, so it's not like I have all the room to actually put a quilt on the bed and show it to you. My house is so tiny that it's just not enough room. It's not conducive to that. Phyllis said, I've made several to take fives. I like to take five too. I've made a few videos on those where I've made them scrappy. And Ramona says, what is take five? You all know I'm not an artist, right? But I'll just what the reason why I did the take five is normally any quilt pattern, or the quilt pattern is made by using 1 yard of 5 different fabrics. That's how it originally started out. And your pieces were cut 1 8.5-inch square. I think it's 3 4.5-inch squares, and then 1 4.5 by 8.5-inch piece. Now, I like that because I was able to get rid of a lot of ugly Christmas fabrics that I was tired of looking at. And then I also just use it to get rid of, to use them for scrappy quilts. So I'm just making a little chart here on my paper. because you all know I like to draw and I can't draw, but I still continue to do this for you all. Anyway, I have a die from TeaQuilts, and they have the Take 5 die. So I purchased it. Now, these are the finished size of the pieces. So remember, on the die, my 8-inch squares would be cut 8.5. They'll add back on the half-inch seam allowance. But this is basically what you have. And then you kind of shuffle the pieces around in your stack, and then you sew these blocks back together. And it's called the Take 5. And you can put them back together where they're just set straight in a row. You can do some rotating of every other block, rotate every block, or just put it back together any kind of way you like. It doesn't matter. They all come out beautiful. You just mix fabric. And Bonita is saying, what is the significance in hand sewing the binding on a quilt when entered into a show versus machine sewing? I will say if your quilt is perfect and it's precisionly done to the point where they've got your quilt up against a quilt that has the hand binding and the other quilt over here has machine binding, they're going to pick the quilt with hand binding just because it's the industry standard for how you make a quilt and make it look appropriately. When you sew your binding on by machine, it's very unlikely that you're going to sew it right at the spot where it should be. When you have binding on your quilt and then you sew your quarter inch seam, you flip that binding to the back. Sometimes the binding is more on the back than it is on the front. That's one of the things that they might look at as they're judging your quilt. Do these two bindings meet up exact on the quilt without it being any extra space on the edge of that binding? They want to make sure that binding is full, and they want to make sure that it matches up on the front and the back. So you just have to be careful with that. It's just a judge's discretion to choose the quilt that they think is the best made, and they're going to go with one where the binding is hand sewn on the back, most likely. Phyllis is telling everyone that I have a tutorial on the Take 5. Thank you, Phyllis. Teresa says, good luck. Liz Ryan says, ditto, Sharon. Phyllis says, life and allow, you are marvelous to finish that many. My home phone is just ringing off the hook tonight. Sharon Martin says, holy cats, that's a lot of quilts. My own bed turning would take 5 minutes, and that's only if I took my time. Teresa says, do you lay out the quilts to base them with extremely limited space? When I didn't have my long arm, I don't base any quilts now because I quilt everything, even 8x10 on my long arm. So when I was basting quilts, I would base on my kitchen floor. It was just linoleum, and I would just base to it. And then whenever I didn't have that amount of space when I was at work, that's when I actually took my quilts to work, and I would go to work early so that I could use our conference room floor, and then I would base the quilts there. Now, if you don't have big enough space to base a bed quilt that you're going to quilt on your home machine or sit down machine, then I would recommend that you use the table, and then you're just going to base, like you're going to start in the middle and only base what you can pin, and then you're going to have to stop and adjust as you go. And I'm sure that there are videos online that show you how to do that. I never had that because I had the space at work. Once I quit work, I was without a place to base for 9 months, maybe. I just didn't do any quilting of large items during that time because I knew that I was going to get the long arm. I was in the process. I didn't even do any quilting hardly at that time because I was in the process of redoing my whole entire work area. That's when I did all the wrapping of my fabrics, and that took months because I probably wrapped over 1,600 pieces of fabric. It's ridiculous. I don't need another piece of fabric. But we still go buy another piece here and there. Darlene says, I hand bind the back of my quilts. And I'm not saying that you have to hand bind quilts that you're giving away, because people don't know the difference between it being hand sewn and machine sewn. And actually, when I'm making quilts that I give to other people, I go ahead and do them by machine anyway, because number one, they don't know the difference. Number two, it's going to get a lot of wear and tear. I do have, especially on baby quilts, because I do want them to use them, and they're going to have to wash them if they're using them. Now, I've had quilts that I've had since I started quilting in 1994. I've never had my hand stitching come out of my binding. I see just normal wear and tear of some of the older fabrics with coloring because they fade a little bit more. But other than that, I don't have any problems with any of my techniques for using the binding on any of the old quilts. Phyllis says she's 83. No way I could lay a quilt on the floor. May get down but never get up. And that was one of the problems that I was having. I was a bowler for a few years, and so I was starting to have difficulty with my knees from bowling. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get a long run, because I was tired of using the floor. And I had even invested in knee pads that I would use when I actually basted my quilt on the floor. So just a tip, ladies that are doing basting on the floor. I went to Harbor Freight and just purchased me some thick knee pads to use to baste my quilts. But yes. So we're done through the comment section. I hope this topic answered some of you all's questions. I'm not sure if the person who wanted this information was actually here tonight, but I appreciate you all watching. I'm hoping that in April, since April 1st is Easter, which is this weekend, I still will not have my quilt patch block done for Sunday, but I do hope to have it up. If I can get start working on it next week, maybe the next week. So I'm hoping I can still get a block up for the month of April. I have not done a block for the month of March. So I'm hoping that I can get back on track with that. I do have some pre-cut pieces that I have out for a quilt block that I want to work with. I haven't used this particular ruler, and so I do want to videotape that. I do have a few haul videos still that I have not had a chance to edit. I actually received a nice package in the mail from someone, and I have videotaped it, but I haven't had a chance to get it edited. So I am working on that as well. So let's see, got a few more comments that popped up while I was chatting, saying, Sharon says, go to the library or church for big tables, layout, and base to quilt. I still got this one eye. I don't understand how I got one eye bothering me, but it is. Teresa C says, thanks. I didn't have any place available. Is it possible? Is the possible answer to do the quilt as you go or row by row? I have done quilt as you go technique on a couple of quilts just to experience the technique. And I have to say that I do like it in some instances. So yes, you can use the quilt as you go technique, because you can then, if you want to quilt it by row, that probably would be even better, because then you don't have to do as many connections, but you can also do it block by block as well. But I kind of like the row idea. Donna says, thank you, T. Great discussion. You're welcome, Donna. Liz says, I utilize quilt as you go, and it saves the back and knees. It's not fast, but that's okay for me. And another thing about the quilt as you go method is that you can also like use particular blocks or strips in particular areas, and you can also sort of make like a second design feature on the back, especially if you're using the block method. You can do a whole lot with the design. Some of you are saying, thank you, T. You're very welcome. And that is it for tonight, ladies. And Kaylin's here. It's just a great topic. Thank you, Kaylin. I appreciate that. So that's it for tonight, ladies. I don't know what we're going to talk about in the month of April. So if you all have any suggestions, or I can just do some live sewing chats. I'm okay with that as well. And I can just answer questions as we go. But I don't have any formal topics. I think I've used everything that I had given to me. If I missed your topic, just please resubmit it to me via upload of this email, or you can put it on any email if you don't want to wait. I mean, any email. You can put it on any video if you don't want to wait for this video to upload. So, yes. So that is it. Everyone looks like people are saying goodbye. So I will see you all next week. And happy Easter, everybody. Bye bye.